Okay, so I have an extremely exciting video today about my experience selling coloring books on Amazon KDP. So in the last 2 months, I've managed to sell over 240 units on Amazon across 12 different coloring books. Okay, so I don't want to make this video too long and too boring. I want to try and get as much information here as humanly possible inside this video without making it too long. And I think if you're interested in selling coloring books, or if you're interested in pursuing something different on Amazon KDP, then I urge you to actually watch the entirety of this video, despite how long it might be, because the information that I'm giving here is real life information. It's my real experience. It's pretty much everything that I've been doing, having success with and failing with. I'm going to cover a ton of topics that I'm going to talk about in just a second. Okay, so what I don't want to do in this video is just say to you, hey, these niches make X amount per month, and if you follow these niches, then you can make the same amounts of money, because you won't. And I don't necessarily believe anymore in releasing niche videos, because I think it does have a negative impact on the marketplace. So that's not what this video is going to be about. I think you need to learn a lot more about publishing than just what niche you're going after, and especially in markets that are quite competitive like coloring books. So hopefully in this video I'm going to talk about all these things, and you're going to have a clearer idea as to whether you want to sell coloring books. Okay, so inside this video I'm going to be talking about what type of coloring books I've been having made and selling. So I'm not going to go too niche specific, because they are pretty much just broad niches themselves. If you spent like 5 minutes looking for kids coloring books or adult coloring books on Amazon, you could find all these niches, no problem. And like I say, just telling people to flock towards certain niches, I don't think is beneficial to anyone at all. Then we're going to take a look at how many coloring books I've had made and how many of them actually make sales, and how much I've spent on creating these coloring books or having them outsourced. And then we're going to talk about the main section, which is how do I actually compete in such competitive markets. And then from there, we're going to look at things like how do I outsource these, where do I outsource these, what are bad practices within this business model. Then we're going to talk about the element of luck. And then we're going to talk about whether you should create your covers yourself or should you outsource them, and in which scenarios does this make sense to create your own covers, and which scenario makes sense to actually pay someone else to do it. Then we're going to talk about what manual work is actually involved, and that was me just throwing my mouse across the room. And we're going to talk about things like A+ content. And at the very end of this video, we're going to talk briefly about ads. Now obviously I can't go into huge detail with ads because the video would take hours and hours to finish, but we'll touch upon that very briefly as well. And also, before I start, I just want to touch upon a couple other things very quickly. I'm fast approaching 10,000 subscribers, and it would mean the world to me if you haven't subscribed, you go ahead and do so and help me get to that point. That would be absolutely amazing. It's no big deal, but it's kind of a vanity number that I would love to achieve. And if not, that's also fine too. And just one other note very quickly is that I know that I said I would create a starting over video. So if I had to start over, I would use something like BookBolt to try and just create my business again from scratch. And I do absolutely desire to make that video, but what I would want people to be aware of is that I'm not actively doing that myself. It would just have to be based on theory and my thoughts of what would work and what would be easiest in a starting over scenario. So if you still want to see that video, please let me know in the comments, but just bear in mind it's not something I'm actively doing at the moment, and I would not like to mislead people into thinking that's the business model that I'm taking going forward when it isn't. But at the same time, I do think it would help. Okay, so let's get into this video now, and I apologize if there's not much going on screen. Once again, I've been pretty busy actually pursuing my publishing business itself, that it might take me too long to make this video look all fancy, but hopefully you enjoy the content regardless. And we'll move on to the first point here, is what type of coloring books am I having made? So basically very competitive niches, or pretty competitive niches. So things that are aimed towards seniors, and also things that are aimed toward kids. So books like unicorn coloring books for kids, and then also for adults I'm looking at just simple beginners coloring books as well. So nothing special there. That's not any sort of ridiculously crazy hidden niche. These are broad niches. We know that they're competitive. It's nothing special, but these are the type of books that I've been going after. Okay, so how many of these books do I have, and how many of them make sales? So at the moment I have 12 coloring books that have been made in the last 2 to I think 3 months, and overall they've made just under 240 or just over 240 units sold. I've not added up exactly, but it's somewhere around that. And to give you an idea now of how many of these actually sell, what I'm going to do is tell you how many don't sell at all first across any marketplace. Okay, so just added it up, and 5 of these books don't sell at all across any marketplace, okay? And the other 7 do make me sales. Now, how many of these other 7 are actually selling well, as in extremely well? I would say that around 3 or 4 of these books are ranked under 100,000, and they stay consistently under 100,000 in the BSR, the rankings on Amazon, okay? So that's pretty good. The lowest that I've hit was with one of my children's books, which went to around 60,000 briefly. So again, pretty good in a competitive market. And then the remainder of the books, we have ones that are kind of around 500,000 ranking in the US store, and then in the UK store they might be around like 120,000. So they're making sales, nothing spectacular, but I'm making my money back on them and continuing to make sales on them as well. So hopefully that gives you an idea of my success rate, and hopefully if you do want to pursue things the same way that I do, you can have a similar success rate as well. And that's important that you understand if you're going to produce any type of book on Amazon, is that your success rate is not going to be 100% with your books, okay? And on that note, it is important with anything you publish on Amazon that you act in a realistic manner with your expectations, okay? So you can see these niche videos that say, you know, this coloring book niche is a $10,000 per month or $5,000 per month niche. The reality is that someone is possibly making that money, but the reality of you making that type of money is probably 0% or somewhere very close to 0%. And I think that's what I'm trying to get across in this video, is that I don't want to just say to you that some books can make you X amount of money per month in certain niches, because all that we're doing there is looking at other people's stats of what other people have done, what other people have achieved, when this is all about you. This is all about what you're building and the way that you go forward with making money, okay? So it's not enough, in my opinion, to just have a good niche. You need to know all these other things and factors as well, because niche videos revealing like these hot niches, they're just surface level, and I don't think there's enough information to actually help you make sales on Amazon, okay? Okay, so how much money have I spent on creating these? And if I had to guess, I've maybe made my money back on these so far. I'm not quite sure, I've not added it up, but I'm not too focused on whether I've made a profit or not at this point. I'm focused on trying to get books to actually sell to my target audience. But for each book, if I had to guess, on average, spending around $40 to $50 on the whole book. And it depends, because these are very simple images that I'm having made, they should be quite cheap to outsource. And on top of that, I've also been doing some of the covers myself where it makes sense to do so. I'm going to talk about that later in this video. So overall, the spend isn't too high across 12 books. So we're possibly looking at around maybe $500. I'm not quite sure. And it looks like over the last 2 months, hopefully, I think maybe I've made my money back on that at this point, which is very quick to make money back on this type of investment. And again, this comes into the part of being realistic, like especially if you're trying to scale your business up, then you will need to outsource your work, and you will need to make that, and you will need to wait to actually make that money back. And if you have a good enough book, it should make you sales for a long time. So the immediate return isn't going to make you too much profit with this pursuit, but in the long run, hopefully it will do. And of course, just to note, there is some ad spend on this. I know some people think you need to spend crazy amounts of money on ads in order to make sales. That's not true. My ad spend is pretty low across all of these books. I've had a lot of failures with some of these ads and I've cut them off, but I really haven't spent too much money on these. So we're looking quite good in terms of actually making a profit in the future overall with these books, okay? Okay, so on the topic now of outsourcing, where do I outsource my work? If you've watched this channel, you know that I have pretty much everything made from Upwork.com, and I have experimented with hiring people from Fiverr for my covers. I'm going to talk more about that at the end of this video. Okay, so this actually moves me on to the bad practices section of this video. So one of the things that I just absolutely, and I can't put my finger on as to why, that I don't believe in, is taking your images from places online. So I know that some people, they like to go to places like, I think it's Creative Fabrica, places like this, or just stock websites. I don't know the names of the websites because I don't use them, but they take those images, put them into Canva or some other software, hollow them out, and then use them within their books for coloring in. So for me, I don't believe in doing that. I feel like you're taking someone else's work and then just selling it on as your own. And I also feel like if you're doing that and you're taking your images from like multiple sources, it doesn't create this sort of uniform feel to your book, and it makes it kind of look tacky and cheap, in my opinion, doing things this way. You might disagree, but it's just something that I don't do. I don't believe in. I like having a completely unique product, and the only way that you can get a unique product is either by doing it yourself, which I can't do, so I hire people to do so. I hire people, designers, to do this for me, okay? And speaking of bad practices within this business model is uploading bad books. I know there's a temptation when you have something outsourced that just because you've had it outsourced and you spent money on it, that you feel the need to go ahead and upload it onto Amazon to try it and sell. So basically, I have had an experience recently where I hired someone to do the coloring images for inside of my book. They sent me a really good sample, and then the actual work itself turned out to be terrible. And the temptation is there to upload this onto Amazon anyway. Now, the problem that I have with doing this is that, one, it offers a terrible customer experience, and two, what I'm trying to do with my coloring books is to have them all across the same author name. So if someone buys one, then they might come back and buy some more. I guess you can kind of call it like a brand. So if someone buys this book that isn't particularly good, they're not going to be likely to buy more books from me, okay? And I think when it comes to creating coloring books, I think you either need to have these design skills yourself to create the images, or you need to have money in order to have someone create them for you. So I just can't bring myself to ever create a video about how you can make coloring books or activity books for free, because I don't believe it myself. I don't do it myself, and I would never recommend anyone else do that. You might think differently, but that's just my opinion on the matter. Okay, so moving on to the main section of this video is how am I actually competing and making sales in these niches? And I know some people are going to say that it's only because you're running ads to these books, that's the only way you can make sales in competitive niches. And I agree to some extent, like ad campaigns are going to be important for competitive niches, but there's more to it than just spending money on ads, okay? So running ads isn't some magical pill to making sales on Amazon. So this is something that I don't think people talk enough about, and it's something that I want to talk about now. So we've all heard people talk about your quality over your quantity, and I've spoken about this in my videos myself, that you should obviously focus on quality over quantity. What exactly is quality? Who knows on surface level? Who knows what that means? But ahead of that, there's something that's more important than quality, and that's your audience. So if I had to say, the order of importance here would go audience, quality, and then quantity, okay? Or realistically, audience / quality, then quantity, okay? So focusing on your audience is, in my opinion, the absolute most important part of your Amazon business. Anything that you sell, you need to really focus on who your audience is. So forget about quality. You can put 20, 30, 40 hours, weeks, months into a book, but if it isn't right for your audience, then it's not going to sell. And that's why I will always say that the order of importance goes from audience first, and then you focus on the other aspects. And to give you a quick example, one of the niches that I've been selling in is basically beginner coloring books for adults, okay? That's, again, it's nothing special. You've probably heard these and seen these yourself. But one of these books, or two of these books, sell extremely well, and one of them sells not so well. In fact, it's ranked over 1 million in the Amazon store. And what I did is I actually, instead of just assuming that a certain percentage of books are going to sell, I actually looked at these books that weren't selling and tried to figure out why these books not selling. And I looked at this book and compared it to the two that were actually selling. And it made me realize that the images inside this book, the one that wasn't selling, they were way too complicated for someone that wanted a beginner's book. So I'm showing off, like, my cover has images from inside the book, or one image from inside the book. So it shows some of the interior off on the front, basically. And then my A+ content also shows some of the interiors as well. So people get to see exactly what they're going to be buying. And with this book, it was evident that it is way too complicated for people that wanted beginners coloring books, okay? So what I've done there is I've missed the mark with my audience, and that's why it's not making sales. And these books here, these type of books for adults, I make these covers myself. So it's not a case of like the cover is just dreadful, it doesn't suit the audience. It's because the content of these books just isn't suitable for the type of person that wants to buy them, okay? And for me, that is just so important. You really need to focus on what your audience, what your customer is expecting to buy from within the niche that you're selling in, okay? Which leads me on now to how I'm actually physically competing in terms of the quantity of pages that I'm having made here. So for these books, I'm either trying, when it comes to competing against other books, I'm trying to match what other books are offering or going beyond how much they're offering by a few images, 10, 20 images, okay? And one of my best-selling coloring books, it actually offers the same amount of coloring pages as a similar book in that niche. And what's happened recently that made me realize that you don't necessarily have to do more than your competition is that someone bought one of my coloring books and they left a review and they took a picture of my book inside of that, which was pretty amazing to see. But they also took this picture next to, sorry, I've messed up the recording here, but what I was trying to say was that when this customer bought my book, they took a picture of my book, but they also had a picture of my book next to another book in this niche that I've seen being sold on Amazon, which offers the same amount, the same type of coloring book and the same amount of pages. So basically they've bought both books. And my point here is that the reason why you don't necessarily always have to do something better is because with these type of books, people buy multiple copies of them. They don't just buy one coloring book and then keep buying that book over and over and over again, or never buying another coloring book again. They go on and they buy other coloring books. So it doesn't matter necessarily if you don't offer more images. And again, this all comes down to just focusing on what your audience wants. Okay, so that moves me on to the element of luck. So as I've already read out my stats to you with these 12 books, obviously not all of them are selling, and to some extent you are going to have to get lucky with the books that you sell. You know, it would be amazing if someone could come and tell you exactly how to sell 100% of your books. It's never going to happen, and that's why creating multiple books is a necessity for this business, for independent publishers. But I think it is something that you need to have a cautious attitude with. So you don't need to go into this with the assumption that if you publish 10 books, then 2 of them are going to definitely make you sales. You need to get all these other factors right that I'm talking about in this video as well. So again, focusing on your audience, making sure that you have a niche that does have lots of traffic going to it, all these things first. So don't just assume that if you upload 10 books, then you're definitely going to have 2 of them make you sales, okay? This is the 20-80 rule or whatever it's called that people talk about all the time. I would just urge you to be cautious when taking this into consideration, okay? Okay, so moving on now to what manual work is actually involved. So a lot of my business now relies on me outsourcing these images from Upwork and places like that, and having the covers made on Fiverr.com. So what work do I actually do myself? The first thing being the title of my book. Now, I think this is actually important, and what I've noticed, it could be a coincidence, but I've noticed that with the titles where I include some sort of benefit inside the book. So for example, if you had like a butterfly coloring book for adults to help with relaxation, for example, the benefit being that it's going to help people relax, as opposed to just having a, butterfly coloring book for adults, something like that. Offering some sort of, or providing some sort of benefit that people can see right as they see your listing, I've noticed has actually helped these books sell better than the other books. It could be a coincidence, but on top of that, in terms of titles, I like to try and keep them quite short, have the main keyword as the title itself, and then subtitle, I just have something that makes sense, maybe has one other keyword in there. I don't keyword stuff or anything like that. I want people to be able to read my title within a few seconds and know exactly what they're getting and what the benefit to them or whoever they're buying it for is going to be, okay? So short-ish, punchy-ish titles. And the next thing on top of that, manual work, I create the A+ content myself. So if you don't know what A+ content is, you get to sort of spice up or jazz up your description and put images and graphics inside of your description. And all I like to do, I don't overthink this, I don't try and make it, I could make this better, obviously it's something I need to work on, but all I'm doing is showing people what they're going to get inside the book. So you can take whatever images you've had made and show them on the description of your listing, and that gives people an idea as to what they're going to be buying, okay? And this is one of those things I think it's probably impossible, because you can't exactly split test this type of thing. It's impossible for me to say if it is helping or not, but I'm going into this with the assumption that it is helping because it's something that I would like to see when I buy something myself on Amazon. Okay, so speaking of manual work, this moves me on to the next point of, should you outsource your front cover or should you create the cover yourself? So the easiest way that I decide whether I should create the cover myself or outsource the cover design for someone else is, can I do this myself basically? I know it seems a bit strange, but I don't ever sort of try and go above my own design skills, which are very, very limited, and they are limited to creating on Canva. So for example, I think I've made about, out of the 12 books that I've uploaded, I think I've made about 6 of the covers myself. And this is because it makes sense to do so. Like some of the niches are for simple coloring books, like easy-ish coloring book for beginners. And on the cover of these, looking at what other people are doing, these covers are simple as well by nature. So if it's something that I think I can do, then I'll give it a go. If I can't do it myself, then I'll outsource it. But for these like really simple coloring book covers, then yes, I do them myself. But when it comes to things like kids books, so things that need to look really lively and colorful and just really aesthetic and yeah, lively, I need to outsource these, and I spend around £25 per cover that I have made for these type of books. And then from there, once I've either had these outsourced or whether I've created these covers myself, I go and compare them to the books that I'm competing against, and I say to myself, realistically, is my cover on par? Is it close enough to being as good as these other covers? And if it's not, then I'll either outsource it again or try and create the cover again in Canva. And this is one of those things, I do strongly believe that your cover is very important, and you need to make sure that it's in theme with other books inside of your niche, okay? So for example, for coloring books for kids, I found that the ones that sell better for me are ones that, so I use images from inside of my book on the front cover, okay? I want to show people what they're going to be getting inside the book. So I don't take random images and show them on the front. I use images that I have actively got inside these books. And what I found for the kids books is that having one big image of one of the things from inside your books works better than having like smaller multiple images from inside that book, okay? So for example, if it was a animal coloring book for kids, I would have one big picture of an elephant or a cat or whatever's inside the book, instead of having like smaller images dotted across the front cover, okay? So it makes the book look really, really punchy. Okay, so just a couple, sort of going to do a random section here. So how many pages are my books? Most of them are 50 to 100 pages. What size are the books that I create? They are 8.5 by 11, pretty much all of them are that size. Do my outsourced covers work better than the covers that I create myself? No, not really. They're probably about equal, sort of 50-50 in terms of what sells well. And again, it's one of those things where if it's in theme with other people's covers in your niche, the ones that are also selling well, if you can make it look similar, not similar as in copy, but if you have a similar quality, regardless of whether it's outsourced or not, then that cover should work for you. If I was trying to create more complicated covers myself, then yes, 100% outsourced covers would work better, but I think I'm pretty clued up as to what my design skills are like, so I don't ever actually bother trying to find out, because I know they're not good enough for more elaborate covers. Okay, so that moves me on to the last part of this video, and it's going to be probably the shortest part here, and that is ads. So basically, yes, I run ads I never used to preach this, but I would definitely do so now, especially in competitive markets, is that I run ads to every single new book that I upload. And I would say that I start off small. Some of the ads, they just don't work. They don't kick in for some reason. So if they don't happen to kick in, then I create another version of that ad and maybe up the price, up the cost per click. And yeah, this is something that's probably I don't spend too much money on this. It's probably too much to include in one video as to what I've been doing. But ads is a long-term game. You got to keep adjusting these. Some things are going to work. You need to know when to cut them off, when to keep them running. But for the most part, they're either making me a profit or they are at a slight loss or break even. And the ones that have lost me more money than I'm comfortable with, I've just turned off or tried to optimize. And I'm also now experimenting with manual ads. So hopefully I'll have more videos on ads in the future, because I do believe it's going to be a very important part of your publishing business in the future, especially with competitive niches. Okay, so I'm sorry I can't give you more information on ads at the moment, but in the future I promise that I will have more videos on them. Okay, so that's it for this video. This is my sort of experience with coloring books. It's going quite well. Hopefully this has helped you decide whether you think coloring books would fit into your publishing business or not. I do think it's extremely important going forward that we try and learn how to make sales in competitive markets, because I don't think realistically for a lot of us that we want to keep looking for these like ultra super specific niches every single day and trying to build our business around that. But they do exist and they will make you good money. But if you can make money in competitive markets, then you'd have to assume that you can make money with this business for a very long time. And that's the mentality that I'm going to have going forward. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you want to join my Facebook group, just go to the description, click on that, and I will accept your invite within the next day or so. And yeah, I'll see you in another video very soon.